Hi, I'm Elizabeth Anderson Warden, and I'm here to give you a short overview of my new book, Citizenship Education and a Divided Society, Lessons from Curricula and Practice in Northern Ireland, that I will launch at the 2024 CIS conference. My book was published last year through Routledge's Research in International and Comparative Education series. A few notes about me. I'm an associate professor at American University. And this book is a continuation of questions that I explored in my first project, which also resulted in a book on teaching history in Moldova, post-Soviet Moldova. For both projects, I conducted deep ethnographic research and focused on teachers who are often overlooked. Both books took me about 10 years, from data collection, analysis, writing, and publication. The cases might seem different, but they have a lot in common. Both are societies that had undergone recent political, social, and/or economic transition, and both places have contested national identities. So I can't think about Northern Ireland without thinking about the case in Moldova, for which I've been asking these questions for almost 20 years in both of the contexts. How do you tell the story of the past, especially if it's contested? How do you learn to be a citizen, especially after political, social, and economic transformations? How does formal education create, recreate, reinforce, and/or deny identities and social cohesion during times of transition? And last, how do you bring about meaningful educational change? After exploring these questions in Moldova, I turned to Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK. Northern Ireland is most, perhaps infamously known for its 30-year civil conflict called the Troubles, which was largely a political conflict between those who seek to remain part of the UK and those who seek unification with the Republic of Ireland in the South. It's often discussed along religious lines, that is, Catholic versus Protestants, Catholic being the nationalists who seek unification with the South, and Protestants who would identify as British and seek a continued union with Great Britain. But that does not capture the full nuances of the conflict. The conflict ended in 1998 with a Good Friday or Belfast Agreement, but the legacies live on. Northern Ireland remains a segregated society and a deeply divided society. The most salient example is 93% of children attend separate schools. That would be Catholic children from Catholic communities attending predominantly Catholic schools, Protestant children attending predominantly Protestant schools. There's also social class separation with grammar or select schools for those students who are university bound, and those students who would attend non-select schools who are often not university bound. So in this context, I asked 3 questions. How have educators attempted to educate young people to live together in this democratic society if they do not learn together in school? How did the promising education reform called Global and Local Citizenship, which had robust support and enthusiasm behind it, lose steam? And what is the future of local and global citizenship and for citizenship education in divided societies? So my data and methods. I had over 9 months of fieldwork between 2012 and 2021. This was funded by a Fulbright Fellowship by American University and Ulster University at various points. I conducted interviews, classroom observation, and ethnography. I partnered with Ulster University in Coleraine, Northern Ireland, and I want to emphasize that my work with Ulster University has been collaborative. My colleagues have been engaged partners throughout the entire process, helping me conduct my research, but also disseminate my research. In total, I had 44 formal interviews with teachers, curriculum specialists, university professors, government, and NGO officials. And so what I focused on was a part of the 2007 curriculum called Local and Global Citizenship, LGC for short. And all the stars aligned for LGC. It's everything that you want to see in education research and policy development and implementation. It dovetailed on larger peace and reconciliation efforts from the Good Friday Agreement. It was part of the newly formed Department of Education. There was incredible funding. There was political acceptance from both parties, all of the dominant parties. at high-level stakeholder support and input. It also had teacher buy-in. It had thoughtful and well-funded teacher training and school rollout, and yet the aspirations have been largely unfulfilled. Its success has been limited at best and remains a marginalized and diminished area of the curriculum. So despite the best intentions, despite all the funding, despite all of the alignment, it still has not succeeded. So I asked why. And I have two findings that I'm going to just discuss here. There's more in my book. One is about the multiple understandings of the purpose of education. And the second is entrenched neoliberalism or an exam culture, another way to say that. So what is the purpose of education in a post-conflict society? So for us in comparative international education, for researchers and scholars, practitioners, for grad students, it's our common sense that education should be a vehicle for transformation. Education should be the vehicle for peace, reconciliation, conflict resolution, building critical thinking skills. And the Northern Ireland curriculum, which was written by educators, former teachers who were then, Department of Ed officials, curriculum specialists, policymakers, all really well-intended people agreed. And the curriculum was aimed to empower young people to achieve their potential and make informed and responsible decisions throughout their lives. Some of the other language from the curriculum included developing knowledge and understanding the skills for the 21st century society and economy, recognizes wider social responsibilities to aid in reconstruction, right? Aimed at that peace building, develop young people as contributors to society, underpinning of democratic values, practices, and experiences, and the approaches were inquiry-based, multi-perspectivity, and participatory learning. And yet this is our common sense, right? Like this is what we think as the purpose of education. And yet not everyone agreed, right? From my research across schools, from Catholic to Protestant schools, from grammar schools to secondary schools, teachers saw schools and see schools as a place to protect children and prepare them for the workplace. So literally during the Troubles, it was a place to protect children, to close the gates, as one teacher described, from the violence that was happening on the street. And now that protecting of children is manifested in pastoral care. So in the North American context, pastoral care would be comparable to school counseling, that it's really about an ethos that schools have that's embodied in pedagogical practices and through the classroom environment, through the school environment, that's focused on the social and emotional development of the individual student. Now, the social and emotional development and those skills definitely overlap with the skills needed to be an active citizen in a democratic society. But what was happening in my schools that I observed and spent a lot of time with, those goals around pastoral care diluted the goals and aims of citizenship education. There was not enough difference, right? There was more emphasis on the individual child rather than the individual child's relationship to the collective and ensuring that that individual child would be an active citizen as they grew up. And so this has implications for the role of education in conflict resolution, right? If we see it, that means we as scholars and practitioners and academics as a vehicle for transformation. But as teachers see it as a place to protect children, prepare them for the workplace, to help them nurture into, individuals that, that are well-rounded, but maybe not necessarily active citizen. This does have implications, right? And so this seems so obvious. It seems so obvious that the views of academics, policymakers, curriculum writers might not be in alignment with teachers, principals, and parents and students. It's so obvious, but it's really often overlooked. I spent a lot of time in my book talking about the need for a discussion about what is the purpose of education and understanding that there might not be alignment or there might not be agreement on what is the purpose of education, but we need to be able to reconcile that. And we need to be able to engage in that conversation because that is part of democracy. And us as comparative international education researchers and scholars and practitioners, we need to be ready to square this difference, right? That if the teachers and parents don't see education as a vehicle for reconciliation or peace, we need to be able to deal with that and think about it. So I talk more about that in the book. And last, an entrenched exam culture. Northern Ireland is an driven system, high stakes exams at the age of 16 and 18. Local and global citizenship is deprioritized with the system. And I talk a lot about this, and this dovetails with other research that's out there on Northern Ireland and on the UK on high stakes testing. But it has real consequences for conflict related learning, right? For learning about conflict resolution, for reconciliation, for peace. Citizenship education is marginalized. Academic learning is privileged over social emotional learning. There's a loss of opportunities to learn skills associated with peace and conflict resolution. I talk more about that in the book. So that's it. Thank you so much. I look forward to discussing my book in more detail at the launch on Tuesday, March 12th. I have a bunch of free copies with me that I will raffle off, and I hope to see you all in Miami. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to email me in advance, or if you would like a PDF of the introduction to my book. Thank you.